The spirit of possession and concepts of ownership over your mate causes human beings a lot of pain and suffering. My name is Asha Sekhmet, and I am a Tantra practitioner, wife, oracle, thought leader, and founder of the Maji Community. We are a spiritual community based on a life system, an indigenous way of life to become closer to the Creator without strict religious doctrine. We practice polyamory, polygamy, and tribalism and sovereignty. Now, I want to frame this conversation on the model in which we're talking about human relationships, which are the fundamental, I would say, aspects of what creates your life and your existence as a human being, right? Life is about relationships. And we have a framework that gives you the tools on how to navigate your spiritual ascension, dealing in the framework of relationship with the opposite sex, relationship with self, and relationship with, in your community, if you're a woman, sisterhood, and a man, brotherhood, and building up towards a sustainable and sovereign community. When we look at this model of monogamy, you'll see that it is very difficult for human beings to be monogamous for a lifetime. And you'll see, based on generations, that may be telling, right, where we are today in modern times, that it is not the only option and the most sustainable option for building out a sovereign community. Now, this is less about comparing, rather what is better, monogamy or poly. It's more about going back to reconstructing relationship models that actually build towards spiritual evolution and collective community. Because the future survival of human beings will be dependent on their communal skills versus the last couple of decades in which people could operate as individuals. That has ran out, right? Separatism is an illusion. The new world is about community. So now I am here as my purpose to talk about the Divine Community ebook. This is my new launch in which I am giving the natural blueprint for relationships that will guide you and prepare you for these new relationship models that will be predominant in the new world, so that we can upgrade our human consciousness to expand how we love, have the tools to navigate these relationships that will build towards sustainable, sovereign communities that will thrive in a new world and will be dependent on, for survival, is that group collective harmony. So when we talk about this model of what's causing a lot of human suffering, based on my personal opinion, it has a lot to do with spiritual and sexual underdevelopment. And especially when we get into what you would consider Black African American communities. In my opinion, possession in the spirit of it is even more prevalent in the Black African American community. And this is for a lot of reasons, in my opinion, right? Religious influence, adaptation of a European culture, thought, ideologies, and existing in a world where that's the predominant culture, in the school system, in which how you're taught to learn and think. And it really separates us from our inherent way of being and relating as people of African and indigenous descent, right? So everything will go back to that, right? How are we relating and building relationships that build towards community, right? When we adopt something that is foreign to us, then it can create a lot of problems And also when we look at, scarcity, a system, an institutionalized system that has also create, right, the how do I want to put it, kind of the stagnation of, working towards that group collectivism in culture, right? So that also creates marginalized groups in, poverty and creating scarcity and on ghetto neighborhoods, right? So we look at an institutionalized systemic, approach to what is also being done, that also crosses over to possession, right? And this is just talking about creating that balance as to, for Black African American people, why, in my opinion, possession and underdevelopment is more at a rapid pace and more prevalent than I've seen than other communities. And again, that's just an opinion. These are just some of the things that I've, seen, even if what you would consider that Black person had resources. In my opinion, I still see a certain level of spiritual underdevelopment that, that's different. And it is telling to the things that I'm referring to with relational skills, right? So when we look at the new models of constructing relationship, one of the foundational pieces that we teach in our life system is do not possess your mate. That's one of our tenets. Now, that can be difficult to do in a society in which promotes this exclusivity of one man, one woman model, getting married, working till you die, run off to the sunset, and stay an individual family, right? That actually goes against community building, that model. And it becomes difficult to not get in the spirit of possession, because in a model like that, you are possessed, right? You are, in this case, if we're talking about in the US, you are owned, right? When we're talking about, having a birth certificate, having a social security, operating in the system. So it creates this environment in which you think that you can now own a human, right? And that's a spiritual violation. And so it just doesn't translate over spiritually. And so that's how you get tragedy, right? Divorce, loss, separation, generations passed down, children, loss, suffering, breakdown in family, breakdown in, bloodlines, and bloodline curses, right? So a lot can come out of this, but that model makes it so that it's almost difficult to not possess without the right relationship model to navigate you, to give you the keys as to how not to do that, so that you're attaining a soul protection, right? We're talking about soul freedom. We're not talking about a romanticized concept of community and liberation. We're talking about soul liberation. We're talking about true attainment of freedom in this earthly realm, meaning that you learned the lessons that you were supposed to, you contributed to your community and mankind, and you're returning back to source. So this is the framework that we work with, and it has a lot to do with relational skills, relationships. You don't be an individual and die, and you're not that's not really how this works. Okay. So really this is about, and also in my opinion, just observing this is very interesting. Like I'll see, people in, especially like in the West, you can have a job, you can be having money, you can have a role, but spiritually, you're still like a child. Emotionally, you're still a child. Developmentally, you're still like a child. And so with humans like that, that's why systems have to take care of them, and they just operate in the system. But we're talking about creating a sovereign community. and a sovereign world. So in order to do that, that means that these humans have reached development spiritually, sexually, right? And so this is the framework that we utilize. So in the Divine Community ebook, we really get into the different aspects of how you can navigate these new relationship models that build conscious partnership between male and female, and working in group collectivism towards sovereignty, integrating relationships that build a community instead of humans who are underdeveloped and think that they're individuals in separatism, and they have an illusion of separatism, right? You do not want to live a life like that and die because your soul goes somewhere, right? That's a lesson. You do not want to live a human life path like that. Because it's creating what I'm saying. Like, reincarnation is real, spirituality is real, the creator, the all is real. And so we have to learn these skills and navigate that if you truly want to connect back to this source, and you want to evolve and grow, right? And stop cycles of endless suffering and pain, like in your bloodline, right? So really, this is a model that helps you get the tools to navigate your partnership so that you are attaining spiritual transcendence, right? So relationships are about growth and development. That's it. What's wrong with the modern world today in relationship models is that when relationship expectations are based on societal norms, religion, and family traditions or expectations, you create unnatural and unsustainable relationships. Then it becomes a breakdown in family, a breakdown in generations and bloodline. And then you can introduce bloodline curses. Okay, so what we are talking about is actually healing from bloodline curses, right? We're talking about actually doing the shadow work behind building conscious partnership, right? So this ebook will give you the tools so that you can navigate that. So no matter what conversation comes up, topic, or whatever your dynamic is in your partnership, you will have the tools that will be your vehicle in guiding you. Now, yes, you have to work in community, and that's what we're building towards, but this will give you the consciousness so that you're on the right set course. So this is really what this is about. And we'll be having a Divine Community Reader Circle this Wednesday, March 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This will be for everyone who has the ebook. You're welcome to come. And if you missed the first webinar, you definitely don't want to miss this session. So this is your opportunity to come and really experience a collective shift, right? We are not talking about, human beings who live this illusion. You think you have resources, you think you're an individual, you think you have a sense of community, and you don't understand community. You're still having spiritual lessons that you're not aware of. And, you will die someday, right? And we're talking about us preparing ourselves, right, and our bloodline for what is to come, right? That is really what wealth consciousness is to me, right? Wealth consciousness to me, the difference between that and survival consciousness is that you're thinking generations ahead, right? Survival consciousness is thinking like day to day, right? Wealth consciousness, I'm thinking about my bloodline preservation. I'm thinking about, my afterlife experience. I'm connected more into spirit than I am into materialism, because you'll see, I read a book that's called The 5 a.m. Club. My hubby gifted that for me at our anniversary. It talks about that in that book. You'll see, and the wealthy see that in the 5 a.m. Club, a billionaire is talking about this. You can't push a Benz, a BMW into the spirit realm. You're not going to push your house into the spirit realm. It's real. It gets very serious. So we want to be able to prep, right, our bloodline. Like, that's what actually matters. Your bloodline, family, relationships, spirituality, connection with source. That's what actually matters, right? Material things can come and go, right? You lose that house, get it, this profession, you start working here. All those things are temporary. This is a temporary world, but your soul is not. So you want to take care of that. You want to take care of that soul more than your BMW. You want to take care of that soul more than that house. Okay. And how you do that is working in conscious partnership, right? Expanding your capacity to love. You have to heal. And work and the divine community also talks about how to work in community and have conscious partnership without experiencing self-abandonment. So we give you the tools for this. So for the reader circle, I invite you to come and enjoy the conversations that we have and engage with our exclusive community. We have a community of very high caliber people and who are truth seekers. Right? We're not about the noise. We're not about popularity. And we're about heaven on earth. Right? So only human beings who have connected with that inner sovereignty, that God within, could ever experience a heaven on earth. You get to determine that. Contrary to what, biblical teachings or religion teaches us, the concept of heaven or hell is not something external. You decide that for yourself. Right now, you can be living in heaven or hell, depending on your frequency, depending on your depth of inner work, depending on how you lived your life and treated people. Okay? We deal with also how to utilize the system to navigate karmic laws. Right? Universal laws. We also talk about what spiritual laws are governing us to make sure that we're operating in these new relationship models with ethics, right? Integrity and morality. That's all in the Divine Community ebook. So you definitely want to get your copy now and join us for this conversation. I always walk away from our event with the Maji community just so fulfilled and feel like I'm just another step closer to the mission being accomplished, right? It's committing ourselves to something greater, right? For generations to come. That's wealth consciousness to me. If we could get more humans thinking like that, that's how people who want to do harm to you think. Now that's bad, right? And I don't look at things as good or bad, but that is not a great setup if you have groups of people in the society, the ones who actually have, I guess what you would consider like wealth, resources, and they are in that consciousness to think ahead, but they're thinking ahead to do harm to you, to prevent you from attaining your godhood and your happiness and your freedom. You see, but the way that you fight back with that is spiritual. You have to go within, right? Can't go without, right? So this is really the space that we're providing for you to get the tools for that. And it's really about people who are just that serious about liberation and freedom. Some people, it's not their time. It's not their lifetime. They desire slavery and the illusion of comfort and material things and temporary fun over their freedom. Hey, if we're on a plantation, you have some slaves who rather just be fed food and, you know, told what to do so they don't have to think for themselves, right? But then you have those rebellious, you know, slaves that say, I'm willing to go to the death so I can do that for myself and my children. I don't want somebody to do that for me. All right. That's what we represent here with the Maji community and our growing community here, which has been very beautiful. It's about soul freedom, right? Soul attainment. And it's very real, right? And so I just wanted to share that and some of my thoughts about it. I've been having this epiphany within the last, you know, weekend, and I've been going deep. Like, what is it that I'm really committed to, you know, to make this a better world? And based on my initiations and coming into the world to see how things are, I pinpointed to this breakdown in family and this parasitic thought process of an exclusive one man, one woman owning each other. That has to die, because that is causing so much pain and suffering to human beings, especially in the West. And so for me, I'm really committed to showing what non-monogamous relationship models will look like, are looking like, so that we're actually attaining and getting closer to a type 1 civilization where we're not, savagery is the norm and spiritual sickness is the norm and underdeveloped humans is the norm and childish relationships is the norm and negativity as excitement and entertainment is the norm. I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to have children that live in a world like that. I want to contribute creating a world in which human beings are one with nature, themselves, and the Most High. And so we start here with this framework with the Divine Community ebook. Be a part of the growing shift, helping to raise the human collective consciousness. And I will see you all at the Reader Circle on Wednesday. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like this video, subscribe to my channel. And if you want a one-on-one spiritual consultation with me, you can schedule that at www.ashasekhmet.com/booking. And you can also get your ebook on my website as well, ashasekhmet.com/store. And I look forward to continuing to build and grow with you all. I will see you in the next video.